Judy Halberman is a gender specialist, and this is interesting. Ladies and gentlemen, take my advice. Well, there's an old pants thing, a nice thing, but I'm not going to get into that. What I'm saying is that men, it's believed, make more money than women, and men at the same level make more money than women. Is this really true? What are the stats showing? You might be surprised. And Judy, good morning.
Good morning.
A lot of guys are going to want to say that this really isn't true. It's not a gender thing. It's just, this person over here is more qualified. He just so happens to be a man. He's going to make more money. But you feel maybe the study is showing something a little different.
Well, I was not part of this study, and what I would like to say about this is that they were not comparing apples to apples. What they were saying is that they took a study on all students that enrolled between 2001 and 2002, and what they found was that men were making more money with less experience, but they didn't necessarily choose the same career choices.
It would be, How do you? Again, you're comparing apples to oranges. How does that become validated?
Well, that's what the whole thing is.
Yeah.
If they would have taken the idea that some careers have a bigger price tag than others, it might have been an easier study to actually understand. But this one was just taking everybody. Let's lump everybody into the same basket and see what happens.
Could it be?
If they didn't even take the majors. They didn't even say, well, this group took this major.
Yeah. Could it be that it would be interesting? Now, if you're right, if CEO at company A, CEO at company B, or even further than that, CEO at company A, previous CEO at company A, and maybe go back that way. Now you're really comparing the position. I wonder, do women sometimes choose, and I'm just asking, and I believe there is a gap, right? Would you acknowledge that there is a gap between the amount of money men make versus the amount of money women make?
Yes, absolutely.
So my question would be, is it possible that women choose professions that might not pay as well?
Yeah, you're 100% correct. They do. A lot of times what happens is they choose things like going into being a social worker or a teacher or a nurse, which are amazing professions.
Yeah.
They just don't pay as much as some of the choices that men make. The other thing you have to consider is that even though a lot of men are taking more responsibilities with family than they ever have, women still have the brunt of, children and parents and whatever. So they might take something that has more flexibility. They might take something in the same profession, but not as a prestigious company because it might be something that's smaller that has more flexibility. So they don't pay as much. When
Donald Trump came out with his plan, this plan for child care, and the expense that families have. Many feminists were very, very upset with it because it completely ignored men, and because there are men that do stay home, and his plan didn't include men. And it wasn't necessarily that they were trying to have sympathy on the man, but they're saying you're completely putting women into a position where, well, of course, the woman is the one that stays home and takes care of the kids.
Right, and that's not 100% true anymore.
Yeah.
It used to be true. It used to be true, but now like I said, there's more and more men that are doing that. So they have to take men into consideration.
There is a stigma though when you see the guy that stays home, and I do believe there are times that people say, well, apparently he doesn't want to work or something. He's staying home with the kids. Can you believe it? That really should change. I mean, it's a pretty important job, right?
Oh, of course it is.
Yeah.
Of course it is, and I applaud a lot of the men that are stay-at-home dads. And they do it for many reasons. One, because they love their kids, but two, because maybe their wife has a position that has greater opportunity for their family. So,
For me, if I were to stay home, it would be because I'm lazy, for the record. And I would admit it. I'd come right out and say it. So I'd be honest.
Judy.
You're just being honest.
That's right. It has nothing to do with gender. It's just me.
Judy, I want to ask you, we talked about this study, and it was apples and oranges. Have you seen results of apples-to-apples comparisons, and what do those studies find?
One of the things I did read not too long ago was that if you take women that just graduated today in a profession that men are graduating today in that same profession, a lot of women are making the same or even more than men. But they're taking overall, all men, all women. So again, And there are studies out there. It just depends on what data you want to pull out.
I know we're about to lose you, but I have one other quick question, and that is,
sure.
You say that women tend to choose professions that don't pay as much. Now, but if they're traditionally female professions, a nurse, a teacher, or something to that effect, Is it possible that just as years went on and when men were, in the 50s, when it was the man goes to work, the woman stays at home, unless she's a nurse or a school teacher, could it be possible that we really discriminated back then at how much those professions actually pay?
I think you're correct, and I think that you should be at the top running some of the things that are going to affect women going forward. That's true.
Very interesting. All right, Judy, it was great. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.
All right, okay. Judy is a gender. See, it's very interesting because you see these studies come out, and nobody's asking those questions. She brings up a very good point, but it's deeper than that. I mean, so they pick the professions that don't pay as well. Yeah, but long before it was decided this is what this profession pays because it's a female profession. So it's never going to catch up. A nurse will never catch up anywhere near a doctor because, I understand probably not the right choice, but maybe a teacher. Same thing. Interesting.